How's it going, everyone? Javita here with another 187 feature introduction. 187 has added such a crazy amount of features that I'm doing these in kind of separate videos. So I've already done one on atlases, bombs, rage and focus, and now we're going to be going over the new brews, food, and kind of a crash course on energy, since all these subjects loosely tie together. So 187 introduces a new buff system to the game. Simply stated, you can have an effect from brews as well as an effect from food. This third buff comes from actually having 0 hunger or my energy bar being at maximum. When I lose about 10% of this bar, this full up buff will fall off. During full up, I get a little boost to my health regeneration, which is a wonderful effect, especially for early gameplay. In general, brews are for short-term buffs, whereas foods are for long-term buffs. So looking down here, James was gracious enough to provide me with just about all of the brews. The only one that I seem to be missing is the Revive brew, which, if the description is correct, allows you to revive yourself if you are defeated in combat. I'm not exactly sure how you drink a potion after you're defeated, but I imagine it works very similar to the resurrection mechanic, just that you don't need another player to actually resurrect you. So each brew type has 5 ranks, which include minor, improved, greater, super, and mega. Of course, each version of the brew is a bit more expensive than the previous brew. So going over all the different effects, the instant healing brews pretty much do exactly what they sound like. They heal you instantly. So making good use of the lava floor James provided, let's see just how well these healing brews work. There we go. Holy 6,667. Ah, geez. So, curiosity. Glug. Holy crap. So, an insanely expensive way to go mining in lava, but you might be able to pull it off. I don't know. Here. So. Yeah, you could literally try to at least mine in lava. That's pretty insane. Moving on to the regular healing brews. These of course heal you as well, but they do it with a heal over time effect. These are usually my favorite types of heals, as they generally do a lot more healing over the course of the duration, as long as you don't need that burst healing to save yourself. So it gives us, let's see here, 60 seconds of extra health regeneration. And yeah, that's giving me 870 health every 5 seconds. So, oop, fell in the hole that we dug. So that is pretty dramatic. So 2 sets of brews I seem to be missing are the recovery and instant recovery brews. However, given how the healing brews work, these should work pretty much identical, except of course acting on the energy bar. So the recovery brews will be a energy over time buff, whereas the instant, well, okay, instant. Over here we have the strength brew. This basically increases your power. Normally your damage modifier can only be 50%, but with this brew you can boost it all the way up to 100%. Pretty sweet. And 3 hits for resources. Drink this. 2 hits, 1 hit. Ah, that's cool. Oh, that was gravel. So over here we have the speed potion. This increases all your speeds, including run, sprint, and action speed. So this will allow you to move and use items faster. Okay, so I have 100 agility, so this is the current maximum running speed. With the new Mega Fast Brew, we can make it even faster. Quite nice. Next up we have the Innocuous Brew. This had me scratching my head for a little bit trying to figure out what this actually does, but what it does is it mimics the Shadow Step effect from the skill tree. So taking this will decrease the range at which animals will aggro to you, basically allowing you to practically walk up into their faces. And he basically doesn't care. That's pretty awesome. So I guess because he's flying, I can get even closer than I thought. Yeah, like, get pretty much right up into his face. And he just couldn't care less. And over here we have the luminous brews. These mimic the natural light skills from the exploration tab. So if you're exploring a deep dark cave and you for some reason need both of your hands for say, a grapple and a mining tool, you could drink this potion to be able to use both of those and still see what you're doing. So pretty awesome. And then over here we have the calming and aggravating brews. I haven't been able to test these out because they would require a group, but it seems fairly evident to me that the calming would reduce aggravation to creatures, where the aggravating would increase it. So in a group meteor event, you could potentially use this calming brew to get the creatures to ignore you and move on to somebody else like the tank, and if the tank dies or something, you could potentially use this potion to gain the attention of all the monsters faster. So pretty awesome. So 187 adds a lovely spread of new brews doing all sorts of different things, as well as a crazy number of food items. I believe there's say like 140 different types of foods. However, some of those foods in the knowledge tree are the raw versions that still have to be cooked, so maybe a more accurate number is more in the 75 range. That's still a crazy assortment of foods, and many of them do special effects as well as fill your energy bar. I have to tip my hat to the artists a little bit for making some pretty scrumptious looking foods. Many of these, especially the bowls of ramen and some of the pies, particularly that blackberry pie, makes me want to go out and get some of it for myself. So pretty nice looking stuff. The mint green loaf of bread might give me a little bit of pause, but all in all, pretty awesome looking models. Okay, so it's pretty impossible to talk about foods and not talk about the new energy and hunger mechanic. Now whenever you use items, it will use a portion of this stamina bar. You can simply right click on any of the items to see their stamina consumption, such as the sapphire hammer uses 36 energy per swing. So coming over to the skills, you can invest into energy to give yourself, you guessed it, more energy. And you can scroll down to endurance, and here's a skill for energy regeneration. It doesn't take too many skill points in this to make a pretty dramatic difference. So by default, your energy regeneration is 100 per second, and with skills you can boost that all the way up to 3000 per second. That is pretty impressive. It is good to note that weapons use stamina significantly faster, so this should add some fairly interesting strategy to combat other than just shoot as fast as you possibly can. Another awesome thing is that energy will continue to regenerate as you're charging up a sling bow, so this potentially make the charge attack on the sling bows much more valuable, as it allows you to do extra damage while taking careful aim. So coming back over to core attributes, as you can see here, here's my maximum energy, and you can see off to the side that I'm actually getting 5% less of what I should be. So it's a little bit hard to see here. There is a little tiny bit of this energy bar missing. That is my hunger. As I get hungrier, this energy bar will continue to get shorter and shorter and shorter, all the way down to it's either like 10 or 25% of your energy bar. So far in my experience, I have been unable to starve myself, so you really don't have to worry about starving, but it will make your life a little less convenient having such a small energy bar. As I mentioned previously, if your hunger penalty is below about 10%, you have this full up buff, which gives you a small amount of natural HP regeneration. So a few things I think I failed to mention about stamina so far is that you do not have to worry about running, jumping, or any kind of movement consuming your stamina. However, any kind of movement will cause you to slowly get hungry. Running naturally makes you hungry faster than, say, walking, but it will not actually consume your stamina. So as I mentioned before, using tools or weapons will consume your stamina. To allow it to regenerate, simply stop using actions and it will naturally regenerate over time. And again, movements does not affect energy regeneration, only the rate at which you get hungry. So this makes for a fairly non-intrusive hunger and energy system in my humble opinion. It's pretty nice. Okay, so looking at the various types of foods, there are 3 broad categories that jump out at me. First off, you have the basic foods. These are things like starberries, cooked starberries, even all the way up to raw and cooked meats. It is good to note that you can eat raw meat to alleviate some hunger, however it does apply a sick debuff. Granted, I've been unable to determine what this debuff does. I believe it's a bug for now, so I would view eating raw meat as a last resort. Scroll down a little bit more and you start getting into the fancier, more refined foods. All of these will actually give you a secondary buff of well-fed. This well-fed buff prevents you from getting hungry for the duration of its effect. It appears that for each stack you get 10 minutes of protection. So the stewed strawberry protects me from getting hungry for 20 minutes. Pretty nice. So as you can see, there's a large varieties of these foods, so you can essentially look at the ingredients and say, oh, I have plenty of this on hand, I'll eat meaty broth today, or earth yam pie, so on and so forth. Scrolling down a little bit further and we get into the 3rd type of foods. These have special buffs. It's a bit of a trade-off because these will not give you the well-fed buff, but however they have some pretty awesome abilities, such as this invigorating bread will actually boost my HP bar so big that it turns purple. It's pretty awesome. Going down a little bit further, there's the Energizing Foods. These do essentially the same thing as the invigorating except for your stamina bar. So if you didn't want to invest very much into the energy attribute, you could use these foods to supplement your stamina bar. Scrolling down a little bit further, there's a whole slew of defensive type foods, ranging from shielding from what I'm assuming is basic damage, and then all the way through the different elements. And there's even shielding foods to protect you from various atmospheric conditions. Quite nice. Going down a little bit further, there's the floating foods. These are actually pretty cool. This floating pie actually allows you to jump 2 blocks higher than you normally could and gives you a little bit of resistance to fall damage. Here's another one I'm particularly excited for. There's these teaching foods right here. These will give you bonus experience for all your actions. So you could use this to either accumulate plots faster past 50 or reach maximum level faster. Next up we have the critical effect foods. Sadly I don't have any of these to test, so I'm not sure if this upgrades the chance or the damage, or it might even do both. But it seems fairly evident that it increases critical strike something or another. And then coming down here we have the Persisting Foods. This is another one I'm very excited for, as this reduces wear and tear on your tools and weapons. So you could use this either in place of the item durability reduction skills, or you might even be able to stack the 2 together to really squeak every little bit out of the tools you possibly can. Quite nice. Okay, so normally I would go over the recipes, however there are so many recipes that we would be here all day long going over all the nitty-gritties. But suffice to say that the simple recipes have simple ingredients. So raw strawberry, or let's say cooked strawberry, obviously it's just a strawberry cooked. And then going all the way to the most advanced foods, use, here we go, things like exotic earth yam, bags of flour, rock salt, but all of that's not really that big of a deal. But 1000 power, 360 spark, plus you still have to cook it, so a much more involved process. And apparently we have fortified butter. Hopping over to the Brews, kind of already looked at least the Rage and Focus brews, which fairly involved process. Again, requires power, spark, as well as like fortified milk. There are buckets, however they are not for transporting fluids to actually like build with or make fountains. You can gather fluids for the sole purpose of crafting. So fortified milk, that's going to come from extracting milk glands, which comes from wild stock, and of course water comes from water. But once you get those fluids, there's all sorts of things that you can do with them, such as purify, fortify, so on and so forth. But anyway, another side note on buckets, you can, just like the Atlas, hit X to empty them out. Anyway, I think that'll wrap this episode up quite nicely. I know some people are not looking forward to this new energy mechanic, however I'm finding it to be not that big of a deal, plus the addition to these food and brew buffs are pretty amazing. I'm particularly excited to get my hands on these foods to help augment my current skill buildup, particularly since they last for so long. Anyway, this was Javita. Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like button if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you want to see more like this. And if there's anything you didn't like, please let me know down below. Until next time, peace.